Okay, today we are discussing leadership. I've been thinking about few things for a while now concerning how it appears the family is failing, the church is failing, society is failing us. Okay, and then I thought through and I realized that a lot of it has got to do with the bankruptcy as regards leadership. So I just decided that we should be looking at leadership and look at how we can affect our small spheres, wherever that we find ourselves, and then let's help ourselves out to make the world a better place. But there are a few points that I noted, and I think last week I shared them. And I said that all the money in the world can make you rich, and all the power in the world can make you strong, but these things can never make you a leader. Okay, so all the money in the world can make you rich, all the power in the world can make you strong, but these things can never make you a leader. You can inherit a fortune, but you can never inherit leadership. Okay, so the problem is that leadership has become a role that one plays than a life that one leads. So if we want to break it down, and please, this is open for discussion. I'm just establishing a few points and then you just share your take, okay? It does, if you can hear me. So people see leadership as a role playing. So when you are in the home and you have given birth to children, automatically you feel that, oh, I have to play the role because I'm giving birth to a child. And so it is mandated upon me to just play the role of a leader by making all the provisions I'm supposed to make available. When you marry and then you are the man, you feel that, hey, I'm the head. And so because I'm married, I'm supposed to show that I'm the head. And so they begin to act in response of that. In as much as that is not bad, in my own estimation, I realized that it gets to a point that people give up. Why? Because they see it as role playing rather than a life that they must lead and a calling that they must fulfill. So leadership, among many other things, is a calling and it's a life that one must lead. But I want to ask generally, please, has any of us found ourselves in any leadership position or any kind of leadership role before? Any of us? Any response, please? Any response? Has any of us found ourselves in any leadership role before? Anything to share? Osofo, yeah, I see your response. Okay. So, Osofo, please, can you share with us, in your capacity as a leader, where you think that so far you were leading your role as somebody who needed to play that role, or as at that time you understood it as a calling, or you understood it as a life that you must lead? Can you share with us? Did you feel that you have to play the role because a responsibility was handed you, or you had that understanding that it is a life you are leading and it's a calling you are fulfilling? Can you share that experience with us also, if you don't mind?
Spend Theophilus and reap Africa for you. Spend you, spend me and other people.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Hello. Oh, okay. Good evening to everyone. I think most of the leadership role that I've seen playing something that is within intrinsic. that uh, push me to know that there is a vacuum, and before there's no one, I have to just jump into it. Yeah, and I can say that personally, I feel I want things to work. Yes, normally wait for someone to come and tell me to do this or to do that. So any opportunity that I get, um let's say I leave. Yeah, so I see it as a calling, such that you don't wait for someone to bring the key that you want. You can also initiate the change. Yes, so I would say that my is I see it to be a calling. I see it to be a calling, and of course, to we being humans, you go someplace there are lapses, and you just feel like, okay, so let me play the role of leading or leadership there. So to me, I think it's two sides of the coin. One, I see it as a calling. At times, to we have something called tempting. There's no one there, so you tempt to do it, tempting leadership. So I also take the bull by the horn, make things happen. So also, that's something little from me.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much for sharing. But is Abigail here? Can you talk where you are? Can you talk
Hello,
before I follow up on Osofo's take? Can Abigail talk?
hello.
Yeah, Osofo, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. So I hope I'm clear now. Okay, so Osofo, which has gone off. I'm sure he's having challenges there. Abigail, can you hear me? Okay, so I want to know, have you found yourself, a similar question goes to you, on which of the occasions have been more frequent, where you find yourself playing a role because you just needed to play the role, or you find yourself playing the role of a leader because it was a decision you have made based on your understanding that you've been called to work in it. Which of them would you want to talk about?
Um, Good evening.
Yeah.
So I actually don't remember of any leadership position I've been that I can remember, but I think it would be that of um a calling where I've been called to fill that position to that position to do something in a leadership position. So yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So in your estimation, yeah, so in your estimation, looking at somebody who, now that Osofo is here, I'm asking, in both situations, the one that you were called, I think Osofo line is okay. So I'm asking that usually when you compare the roles that people play because they are mandated by circumstance to play, and then you look at roles that people have been called, and when we say called, we are not talking about people inviting you to come and play a role. We are talking about understanding that this is what God has granted me the grace to do, therefore I am availing myself for it. Of course, whether it came through an invitation or not. But then while you were playing the role, you had that understanding that I've been, gifted to play this particular role. So you were not necessarily, all ignorant when you were invited to come and play the role. Our chairman, we are all Pentecost members here, so chairman was saying that when he was elected the chairman and was giving his, is it introductory remark or whatever, or acceptance speech, he said that he knew that he will become chairman because God told him 20 years ago. Yes. So what we are talking about, when we are talking about calling, we are actually talking about the fact that as you work with God, you understand that, oh, God has granted you grace to do certain things. You may not have the specifics, but then with that understanding, when the door opened or the invitation came, you were able to give yourself to that responsibility. So I'm asking, which one do you think usually produces the best of results, where you have, you are expectant, you know what you are gifted to do, and opportunity comes and you serve, or where, you've been asked to play a role and then you are fulfilling the responsibility anyway? Which of them usually do you think, or per experience, do you think yields results? Also, do you want to say anything about it? That's if I'm clear. Or Abigail want to talk.
Okay. For okay, so this is mm, I think it depends on what you're actually called to do.
Okay.
You might be called to fill a certain position or to act
Mm.
in a certain position, but if you don't really want to do what you are told to, like, it's not something you would actually like to do, but maybe a high authority invites you to fill that position,
Mm.
but you don't actually don't want to do it. It
Okay.
could go both ways. You could actually do it and do it well in should I say honor of the person, or you could do it haphazardly because you didn't actually fill the position. It depends on the I think one, it depends on how you were called to fill that position and the situation surrounding it. Yes. And what you're actually called to do. Yes. But if you intended to fill that position, I think that one also uh beats I don't know how to frame it, but if you actually want to do something, I don't think anybody needs to tell you what you need to do or what you have to do, since you actually wanted to fill that position or you wanted to act in that position. So that also yields the best results. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Also, for cliche, do you want to add up anything?
Yeah. I think outside uh, sometimes it's about whether you're called or somebody. Can you lower it for me, the song, because it's kind of loud. All right, so it all depends. You called, you know that this is called. You might mess things up. So a typical example is Saul. So Saul was chosen by God, and they were given godly counsel by Samuel. But Saul messed it up big time. The same person who cancelled Saul, the person who cancelled David. But in this interview, we can see that Saul was taught by God and was given Samuel to nurture him. He missed it. He missed it big time. So we can also do mention of people so the Bible in contemporary can do the catechomens. When we read how they call it, church history of Ghanaian soldiers, they have it that she wasn't supposed to get that how do you call it, that calling, but the fact that the spirit was given the gift wasn't willing. So like okay, so the gift is the spirit.
Okay. Okay, so I think Osobuguchi's line is quite bad, but I think that per what I heard, he's welcome everybody who has joined us now, and please welcome, welcome. We are talking about leadership. It's an open discussion, and the question on the floor before some of us joined was the fact that um, the roles that per experience or per what you have observed, how would you compare leadership, the results obtained from a leadership that one has been asked to play a role, and then the leadership that one has been called to play a role, the results produced by each instance, how would you compare the result? That's what we were asking. So we established initially that now people see leadership as role playing rather than a life that one must lead. People see leadership as a responsibility rather than a spirit that one must manifest. Okay, and then we were saying that also you may have all the riches. He says all the money in the world can make you rich, all the power in the world can make you strong, but these things can never make you a leader. So we are trying to understand the basis of leadership. We are just trying to see where we are failing as individuals, as members of the family, as members of the church, as members of ministry. We just want to understand how we are, managing things and where we are losing it so that we help ourselves out. So Osofu Kiche was on the floor. I think his line was not that stable. But then Abigail spoke initially and was saying that it depends. All two can have advantages and disadvantages. Someone might be called to play a role that he was not really ready to play and that he might deliver. And then someone might also who understands the mandate of his call would be playing a role and obtain results. And I think it was the same thing that Osofu Kuiche was trying to reiterate. Okay. And so I see Osofu James, you are welcome. Please, can you share your take on it, please? If you can hear me, please.
Oh, please go ahead. I just joined, so you let me
Okay, so you heard
just soak
the
in.
introductory remark on the what we are talking about, right?
Yeah,
Okay, okay. So basically we are looking at leadership, okay? And then I have a point here that I wrote, and it says that leadership is not a technique, it is not a style, it is not an acquisition of a skill, but then it is a manifestation of a spirit. Leadership is not a technique, it is not a style, um, it is not the acquisition of a skill necessarily, but then it is a manifestation of a spirit. And this particular, um, you know, statement came on the backdrop of a story that I believe most of us have heard before. A lion, a young lion who, was left to fend for itself by the parents, and then it was very young, so it was somewhere in the bush. It didn't know what to do. It was at the mercy of the weather, almost dying. And there was this shepherd who was moving about with his flock and saw the lion and took the lion home, and then had to tend to the wounds of the lion and take care of it. Eventually, it became part of the flock of the sheep, and it was behaving just like every other sheep, and saw itself as one of the flocks. But then one day, as they went about grazing, then they heard a monster in the bush try to roar and come at them. Then the sheep began to run away. Likewise, the young lion. And then they were able to run away to a safe place. Later, the monster that was roaring went away. But then when the sheep and then the lion, the young lion, they continued grazing, they got to a riverside and they were drinking water from the river. The young lion saw the image of the monster in the river and it began to run away out of fright, not knowing that the monster it saw in the river was its own image. Okay, so he was drinking, or it was drinking water from the river together with the sheep. So he expected to see, himself, his reflection, looking similar to that of the sheep, but he saw something else. But he didn't know that it was his own image, so he ran away. Then later, he came back again and realized that he looked quite different from, the image of the flock that he is grazing or drinking the water with. Then later, the monster that they saw showed up again. And this time around, the monster was not roaring to scare him away or scare all of them away per se, but it appears as if this monster was inviting this young lion. So the lion, decided not to run away this time around, but stood just few meters away. And then the gestures from this monster, big monster, was now inviting. And then the monster began to roar, and it appears he was telling this young lion to also roar after him. But this young lion tried to roar. He had not been roaring because he'd been behaving like a sheep, so he didn't really know what it was all about. This monster kept on urging him to roar, and then eventually was able to roar. Then he realized that he's not, a sheep. So then the monster beckoned him to just join him. And this monster we are talking about was an older lion. So then it appeared that this young lion has eventually discovered his identity. Now, on the backdrop of the word identity, if somebody is going to be a successful leader, that person must understand his identity. I just want to ask, Abigail, you are here. Papa James is also here. What is the significance of identity when it comes to leadership? Leadership in your small circles, leadership at home, leadership in the workplace, leadership in the marketplace, leadership in the church. What role does identity play, especially looking at the scenario we have referred to? Abigail, you want to talk? Hello, Abigail, can you hear me? Okay, also James, please, can you help us out? Identity in leadership. Abigail says she'll respond later. Identity when it comes to leadership, knowing who you are. This young lion appeared not to know who or what it was, and so it was behaving like a sheep. In fact, instead of him to rule and lead, he was following. What role does identity play when it comes to leadership? Papa James, you want to help us out? of, am I online alone or is it network? Please, any contributions to that? No contributions coming. Okay. Okay. So we can deduce that, first of all, understanding what you are called to do is very, very important. Okay. Most of us just jump onto roles and responsibilities without necessarily understanding what we are called to do. Okay. When we want to look into scripture carefully, Bible says Genesis 2:15, the Lord called man to dress and to keep the garden. And so right from the beginning, the role of man was defined. He was responsible for dressing and keeping the garden. And man understood that responsibility. Okay, so it is quite interesting that it wasn't, man who went to find the devil, but it was the devil who came to find man. And he came to find man fulfilling the responsibilities that he has been given. And man was still dwelling in the garden and dressing and keeping it. Why? Because he understood that that was what he was mandated to do. So the lessons we can draw out of this is that we should ask ourselves, what have we been called to do? What have we been called to do? So you ask yourself, as a Christian, what have you been called to do? You ask yourself, if you are in a corporate world, what have you been called to do? Last time somebody said something. Somebody said that uh, if you're not careful, you might be existing instead of living. Okay, your job is not the same as your work. Some of us are participating in jobs but are not necessarily working. Your job is what you are paid for, your work is what you are called to do. So while, of course, you have to do jobs so that you can earn a living, you make sure that you don't neglect your work. Okay, so a number of us are entangled with what we are supposed to do so that we get paid rather than what we are supposed to fulfill in order to please God. So the session is going to go off in a few seconds. Please reconnect